Hello and welcome to Brightsmith's Women in Mobility series. Today I'm joined by Angela Hultberg. Angela is the head of sustainable mobility for the Ingka Group, formerly known as IKEA Group. And Angela, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do at Ingka, and also how you got into the industry?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Like Jenny said, I'm Angela and I work in group sustainability at Ingka Group, formerly known as IKEA Group, as head of sustainable mobility. The sustainability team at Ingka is quite large and we cover many topics. We've been working quite intensely with sustainability for many years now. Our people and planet strategy has been at the core of our business for several years. We've spent a few billions on renewable energy. We own more wind farms or wind turbines than we own stores actually. And I think almost 1 million solar panels by now. But the work is very big. It covers everything from renewable energy and wind turbines all the way to community engagement, diversity, human rights. I focus on mobility, which is also a huge part of what we do. Of course, we're not a transport-focused company. We're a home furniture retailer, home furnishing retailer. For those of you who don't know, maybe I should have led with that actually. But of course, mobility is part of everything we do. There's no aspect of our business that doesn't have an element of mobility in it. And that can be goods, of course, deliveries to our customers, but also our customers, of course, going back and forth to IKEA stores. And then also we have 166,000 co-workers getting to work every day. So everything we do has that element of mobility to it. And my job then is to make sure that everything that moves, goods or people, move in a sustainable way. Wonderful. And so this is what I do now. My background, before I did exactly this, I was working in what we call customer fulfillment. So logistics and warehousing for Ingka, where basically I was going on and on about electrification of last mile deliveries. But I also, previous to that, worked at IKEA Transport, and I actually started out as a trainee at the Swedish OEM Scania. So I've been in the industry for quite some time now.
Thank you. And I know from speaking to you several times before, you're a big supporter of women generally and in the industry.
It would be weird if I wasn't being one, right?
It certainly would, but I think you go above and beyond, which is fantastic. And why is it that you feel that we need more female voices in the sector?
I think we need diversity in all sectors, to be fair. It makes no sense not to have it. And I think the industry is suffering from a lack of perspective, to be honest, and has been for since always, basically. So there's many reasons why. First of all, it's really hard to be what you can't see, right? So unless you can see women in senior positions in this industry, it's really hard to become one. So it's a very negative spiral that we don't get any because there aren't any. But you know, opposite to that, if we do have more and more women on these positions, then we'll also get more and more women on this position. So that's a given. But I mean, in general, women make up 50% of the people on earth, right? That's 50% of all customers, 50% of all talent, 50% of all users. So of course I want their perspective. So I make sure that the solutions or products or whatever I bring to market actually works for everyone. I want everyone to be a customer, not only 50% of the workforce. So it makes zero sense to exclude that perspective. And, you know, also, if I have a problem or issue and I bring it to my team, then I want a variety of solutions and proposals and insights and takes on that problem. I don't want everyone in that room to give me the same opinion, the same feedback, and the same solution. And that's what you get. I mean, we all have our own thoughts and ideas, and they come from our own experiences. And if we then, if we then have a group of people with different experience, of course, we're going to get different approaches and different solutions. And then we can build on each other. So it just makes zero sense not to have women and men represented. And because we do face different challenges, we do have different experiences. And I've seen during my time in the industry, again and again, these stupid things happening because there was apparently no women present. And it's not really early, even when like I said, I started out at Scania in Sweden, and I was a trainee. And one of my tasks was to do a cabin benchmark. So, benchmarking the Scania cabin to other major OEMs. And it was a great project. We got to, really try out all the trucks on the market from the biggest brands, and we were in them, and we were trying beds and cup holders and all of that. And what we came up with was, I could not use all the functionality in a cabin. Now, I am 165 centimeters. That makes me very average length woman. But the cabins were obviously built for men because you had to be taller than me to reach the cup holders, to reach the thing. I remember one of the cabins, I won't name the brand, but I couldn't even get up to the top bunk, the bed, because they had this very cool feature that instead of a small ladder, they had like a step that you popped out and you climbed on that step and then from there onto the bed. It's just you had to be at least 175 maybe to make that happen. So I couldn't even use it. And I mean, that's clearly the result of having only guys working on that cabin, right? So it's just it's a stupid thing, but it's very telling, of course. And that has consequences because we have a driver shortage in Europe. It's really hard to find truck drivers, right? And obviously, because we've already excluded 50% of the workforce because they can't even use the vehicle the way it's intended. So obviously, we're going to have a problem because there was a lack of women involved from the start. So that's one example, but also we have different needs and different experiences. And if we look at a completely different area, which is public transportation, for instance, and I'm sort of on a mission to make sure that mobility is available and affordable and sustainable for all. That was what I started with. But now I actually added safe for all, because that's a big factor, mostly for women. There are areas in this world where a woman can't get on the bus because that's a real safety risk for her. And that means if they can't move around, then they can't visit their family, they can't get an education because they can't get to school, they can't take a job and become financially independent, all because there's no safe mobility available. And this is an issue that many don't realize exists because it's not an issue for them. And then there's organization, Safer, for instance, working actively with this because it's led by a young woman from this part of the world who has recognized this is an issue. Public transportation is not safe for me and other women, and we need to do something about it. Now, that would never happen if she was not part of this industry. So I just think for all the reasons, and they all seem so obvious to me, we definitely need more women in the mobility industry. It's just a given.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I will make sure I get the details of this lady and link that with the video when we share it as well. And talking about that, the important things that are happening in the industry, what do you envisage happening over the next few years?
Well, I do think, I hope, that we do see a positive trend, because I do see more and more young companies, young people entering this industry with different experiences, women being one, but also just younger from very different parts of the world with very different backgrounds. So it's not all the same, and I think mobility as a service specifically is a very exciting area, because I think we all realize that we have a problem here. Younger people will not own cars. that will probably not be their main way to move around. They all live in city centers. It's super expensive. They don't have the money to pay for a car. And also, why would they? Everything they need is in the city center. And whatever they can't find in the city center, they can find on their phone instead. But every now and then they do need to move around, right? And then the question is, how will they do that? So we see all of these new solutions emerge, everything from the electric scooters to car sharing platforms, to new types of public transportation being developed. And I think this is a super exciting area. And this is where I see the most diversity happening already. And all these people, I think and hope, will move on one day to become part of also the more established companies, right? And so I think that shift will happen, and they will bring with them experiences from all across the world, but also from a female perspective, and also, to be fair, from different socioeconomic group experiences as well, because that actually is super important. So I do think there's a positive trend. I do know that some of the more established OEMs and transporters and companies have been working with trainee programs where they've made sure that they have a 50-50 group of young people coming in. We do see at universities and schools that women are becoming more and more present in some of the more tech-focused areas, and we do see a lot of female entrepreneurs. So there's a positive trend, but I also think that's something I've heard myself for years, that it's going to work out because there are more and more women and blah, blah, blah. I went to law school, as an example. You wouldn't think now, but I'm actually specialized in international tax law. That's my training. And women had been in a majority at law faculties all across Sweden for years, for decades already, but somehow they weren't when it came to being partners at the law firm. So there's a gap there, that 70% of everyone getting their law degree were women, but definitely not 70%, not even 50, not even 40% of the partners at law firm were female. And so something happens there. And I think we need to be careful, because all the positive trends in the world will not make it happen. We have to work actively to make sure to include it. And it comes down to people like myself and to recruiters and to everyone recruiting in this industry to really make sure that the team they have is diverse, that everyone is represented, stop paying people the same amount of money for the same job, and to make it an inclusive workplace. It's super important. It's been one of the success factors for Ingka, definitely. We've had 50-50 in our management teams for many years. We're 50-50 in our workforce, and that brings results. I mean, we're still here after 75 years, and planning on being here 75 more. And part of our success has been that we are a very diverse workforce.
I couldn't agree more, and I think you've raised some fascinating points there. And actually, I think one that I'd like to echo is that people must be accountable for this. A lot of people see these trends and think they'll just happen. But the reality is, we've all seen it, it doesn't happen. If you put out an advert for a role, you will naturally, in most industries, and this one specifically, get more male applicants, less diverse applicants. So you need to be active in your approach and make sure that this is a conscious decision to create a diverse and inclusive workplace.
And there are women in this industry. It's not that hard to find. So personally, I feel like my patience with this is running out a little bit. There are, and if you have trouble finding the candidates, go to any women in mobility list or similar, and just go through them then. Call them, actively search for them, because the more women we get into very visible senior positions, the more women you will have to choose from in 5 years. Because again, if you see it, you can be it, and you can be inspired, and you have role models, and that's super important. And maybe if that has always been the case for you, if you have always had people who look like you but slightly older being in these positions, then of course, maybe you don't even think about how important that is. But if you have no women to look up to in the industry, no women to mentor you, because they magically fade away at a certain level, then that is a problem. So I think it might require a bit more energy, but then do please spend that energy. And I think we should all not be scared to be vocal about it. When you, I don't know, when you agree to a speaking engagement at an event or a summit, raise that question with the organizers. I do sometimes, not always appreciated, but sometimes I say, I'm sorry, I'm not available at this date, so I have to turn this down. And that's a problem for you, because if I turn it down, then 50% of all the women speaking at your event are gone, because you were only invited two. Please. And then I link them to these lists of women who has so much to offer, and I give them names of people they should include. And I think that's something we should all do. We, not as in women having to do this, because this is not the women's job to get more women into the industry. This is everyone's job. And that's where we usually end up, that women need to do this and this and this and that to join this industry. But it's also about the industry itself taking responsibility to be more inclusive, to be an industry for all, because we'll only benefit from it, both in the variety of solutions we'll see, but also in the amount of money we will make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess actually a lot of the points you touched on there were many of the reasons why I decided to make this series was, people saying they don't have role models. There's not someone out there that looks like them, sounds like them, has their background. And I wanted to make sure that you are visible, the other women in the industry are visible, and that for those people who are considering this as an option, they can see people that they can, look up to, see that they've been successful, and to find themselves future role models for their career. So yeah, I think that
and I think that is great, because there's not one way to be. I think that the transport and mobility industry, like every industry, needs a variety of skills. And I think we sometimes get stuck in, it needs to be an engineer and, a guy, white engineer. That's not what is needed only in this industry. We also need marketing people. We also need, marketing, communication, innovation. We need all of these things in this industry. We need people who are brilliant at operations, and we need people who will look at, I don't know, an engine for 25 years and think about how to make that better. But we also need leaders. Like I said, I'm specialized in international tax, and I'm doing all right. And at some point, if a girl from one of the worst neighborhoods in Gothenburg, Sweden, can work in this industry, then so can everyone else. It's just to, really to show and to understand that all skills, all experiences are needed in the industry, and get away from this very narrow picture of what transport or mobility people are like.
And I think it's safe to say you're doing more than all right.
I'm enjoying myself a lot, so that's always a good sign, isn't it?
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas, and thank you so much for being a part of the series. And I think it's safe to say there'll be many young people, both men and women out there, that would find you a big inspiration and someone that they could look up to, regardless of if they started out as a lawyer or any other area of the industry in or outside of mobility. So thank you. We look forward to seeing what's next for you and for the group, and also look forward to continuing our partnership.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Angela. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.